You don't know why you're here, not just on this video, but in this season of life. Everything feels unfamiliar. Your heart, heavier. Your prayers, quieter. And your soul, like it's searching for something it can't name anymore. There's a silence in your life right now that no one else seems to notice. A shift inside you, like something is being rewritten, but you don't know what or why. You're not the same. You feel it. You sense it, but you can't explain it. It feels like you're falling behind, like you're being forgotten by people, and maybe even by Allah. But what if I told you, this stillness, this loneliness, this strange in-between, is not punishment? What if it's preparation? What if what looks like a delay is actually divine timing? And what feels like loss is really sacred redirection? What if Allah is not holding you back, but pulling you deeper into something that only silence could build? This video didn't find you by accident. It was written to meet you here, because deep down, you felt something shifting. You just didn't have the words for it. But tonight, Allah might give them to you, one sign at a time, one whisper at a time, one soft reminder that your soul was never lost. It was just being led somewhere greater than you ever imagined. And now, it begins. 1. When you begin to mourn a life that hasn't ended yet. You're still alive, still breathing, still showing up. People around you would never guess anything is wrong. You laugh when you're supposed to. You nod when they speak. But inside, you're not here anymore. It feels like something sacred inside you has died. Like your soul is dressed in black, mourning a loss it can't explain. No one passed away, no one left a message saying goodbye. Yet you feel like you're attending a funeral no one else can see. It's silent, but it's heavy, like you're grieving a version of yourself that used to be alive, but quietly disappeared. You walk through your old routines like a ghost. Same streets, same faces, but they don't feel like home anymore, even the things that once gave you joy. A song, a scent, a memory, feel distant, like they belong to someone you no longer are. You try to pray, but your heart stumbles. You try to cry, but the tears don't know where to fall. And yet, you know deep down, this isn't random. This emptiness has a purpose. Because somewhere in the silence, Allah is ending a chapter He never wanted you to get stuck in. You're not depressed. You're not ungrateful. You're shedding. It's not just sadness. It's sacred separation. It's the quiet departure of an identity that served its time. An outdated self that once knew how to survive, but isn't meant to walk with you into what's next. The friendships that used to hold you, they don't feel safe anymore. The goals you once obsessed over now feel meaningless. You're starting to realize you weren't living. You were performing for love, for validation, for survival. And Allah saw that. He saw the parts of you that were hurting quietly, just to be accepted. He saw the way you silenced your soul, just to keep people around. And now, He's undoing it. Without noise, without announcements, without permission. That's why it feels like mourning, because Allah is burying the false layers, the roles, the masks, the versions of you that weren't built in love. They were built in fear, and yes, it hurts. Because even pain, when it's familiar, feels like home. But this grief, it's holy. You're not losing your life. You're gaining your truth. You're not falling apart. You're breaking open. And what's dying was never really you. Just the shell you created to survive in rooms Allah never intended you to stay in. So let yourself mourn. Let yourself feel the ache of outgrowing everything that once defined you. Let the silence stretch. Let the world misunderstand your withdrawal. Because this isn't the end. This is the cleansing before the arrival. And when you feel nothing but emptiness, remember, Allah often empties what He intends to fill. You are not being erased. You are being rewritten, quietly, gently, in the exact way your soul has always needed. This funeral you feel in your heart, it's not your ending, it's your beginning, and the new you is being born in the quiet. 2. When your own voice starts sounding foreign in dua. You sit in sujood, and you whisper, but the voice doesn't feel like yours anymore. The words feel foreign, heavy, distant, as if the one making the dua is not the same person who made it last year or even last week. You used to ask Allah with so much certainty, so much emotion, so much clarity. But now the words stutter, they tremble, they fall out of your mouth in broken pieces, like a language you once knew, but forgot how to speak. You wonder, what's wrong with me? Why do my duas sound like they're coming from someone I don't recognize? The truth is, they are, because you're not the same. And that voice you barely recognize is actually your new soul being born. One that's no longer begging for what used to break it. One that's no longer asking to be loved by the wrong people. One that no longer sounds like desperation, but like surrender. This is why your voice feels different, because Allah has pulled you through too much for your duas to stay the same. You've cried in ways that rewired your tone. You've grieved in places no one saw. You've survived nights where even speaking to Allah felt exhausting. But you still did it, and that has changed the sound of your soul. Your duas are not weaker, they're wiser, less about asking and more about trusting, less about details and more about divine timing. You're not losing your connection, you're deepening it. You're not distant, you're just being shifted from emotional panic to spiritual maturity. There was a time you cried in sujood for people who never cried for you. A time you begged Allah to fix things He was trying to remove. A time you made dua for outcomes that would have shattered your spirit. But now your voice trembles. Not because you're unsure, but because you're finally aware that every word you speak is heard, and every pause in your dua is sometimes the most sacred part of all. That silence in your voice, that softness, that unfamiliar sound, it's not distance, it's depth. You are becoming someone who no longer performs faith to feel worthy. You're becoming someone who whispers even through numbness and still calls it love. That is a heart that Allah never turns away. So let the voice shake, let the words change, let the tone evolve. It means you've grown. You are not disconnected from Allah. You are being reintroduced to the version of you He's always known was hidden beneath the noise. And this new voice, even if you don't recognize it yet, He does. And He's been waiting to hear it all along. 3. When you start remembering things you never lived. Sometimes you close your eyes and something appears. A feeling, a place, a moment that you swear you've lived. But it never happened in this lifetime. You sit in silence and an image enters your mind, like a memory you forgot to forget. But when you search for it in your past, it's not there, because it doesn't belong to your past. It belongs to your soul. This is what happens when Allah begins preparing you for something your intellect hasn't reached, but your soul has already known. You're not remembering with your brain. You're remembering with your fitrah, that original light inside you that existed before this world ever touched your skin. You feel drawn to places you've never seen. You feel a sadness for things you never lost. You feel a longing for a home you've never lived in, and it confuses you. It makes you question your sanity. It makes you feel like you're living in two worlds at once. And in a way, you are. Because when Allah is about to awaken your purpose, He first stirs the parts of you that remember Him. Before you knew your name, before you had a body, before you had pain. That's why it doesn't make sense to anyone else. You can't explain it. You can't put it into words. You just know there's something more, something ancient, something echoing from a place beyond this life. And it calls to you, in dreams, in moments of stillness, in sudden waves of emotion, that feel like they belong to someone else. But somehow they are yours. This isn't imagination, it's divine remembrance. Allah is unlocking rooms in your soul that were closed for a reason. Rooms filled with sacred wisdom, silent intuition, and spiritual vision that can't be taught, only remembered. And when that remembering begins, you may cry without knowing why. You may stare at the sky and feel a closeness you never felt before. You may say, Ya Allah, and feel like you've said it in 1,000 lifetimes, because maybe you have. Your body is here, but your soul is older than your timeline. And when it begins to awaken, everything else begins to shift. You stop needing validation. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing what feels temporary. Because something inside you whispers, this isn't what you were made for. And that whisper, it's not fantasy. It's your soul remembering the assignment, the one written before you ever took your first breath. So don't ignore the flashbacks you can't trace. Don't dismiss the pull to places your feet have never walked. Don't silence the ache for something deeper, something that calls to you when the world sleeps. Because what Allah is preparing you for requires a soul that remembers where it came from and who it ultimately belongs to. This is not confusion, this is awakening. And the memories your soul carries may be the very key to what you're about to become. 4. When you feel an urge to apologize to the version of you that settled, there's a moment that comes quietly. Not during the noise, not during the chaos, but in the stillness, when you're finally alone, and out of nowhere, you whisper, I'm sorry. But you're not saying it to anyone else. You're saying it to you, to the version of yourself you abandoned when you didn't know any better, to the one who tolerated too much because they didn't want to lose people, to the one who said yes when their soul screamed no, just to keep peace that never felt peaceful. You remember the times you stayed quiet so others could feel comfortable, the way you folded your boundaries, the way you silenced your opinions, the way you smiled with pain in your throat, because you thought shrinking made you easier to love. And now, you look back at that person you used to be, and your heart aches, because you know they were brave. Brave for surviving, brave for carrying the weight, brave for making it through seasons of life, with no one clapping for them but Allah. But you also know they didn't deserve to be ignored, not by the world, not by the people, not by you. That's why the apology comes, not loud, not dramatic, just soft, like placing a hand on your own chest and saying, I'm sorry for thinking you weren't enough. I'm sorry I let them decide your worth. I'm sorry I made you beg for love that should have been safe. And as the tears rise, you realize this isn't self-pity. This is healing. Because before Allah gives you the future you prayed for, He makes you return to the parts of you you betrayed along the way, not to shame you, but to honor the one who survived long enough for this new version of you to be born. You thought you had moved on, but healing is circular. Sometimes Allah takes you back, not to reopen the wound, but to finally close it with love. So you sit with that old version of you, the one who made mistakes, who settled out of fear, who gave too much and asked for too little. And instead of judging them, you thank them. You say, "I know why you did what you did, and I forgive you." And in that moment, a quiet part of your soul exhales, because you're no longer running from who you were. You're embracing it. You're holding it. You're finally letting it rest. What Allah is preparing you for cannot be built on self-betrayal. It must begin with self-mercy. And it starts here, with that simple, sacred apology to the version of you that never gave up. Even when you did, let it go. Let them go. And most importantly, let you come back to you. Because this next chapter requires your full presence. And now you're ready to show up without guilt, without fear, and without needing to apologize ever again for the space Allah always meant for you to fill. 5. When time feels suspended around you, but you're the only one who notices. You look around, and everyone seems to be moving. Their lives are unfolding. Their doors are opening. People are getting married, starting businesses, traveling, achieving, evolving, growing. And you feel frozen. Stuck in the same place, watching the world change like a blur around you, while your feet feel planted in wet cement. You try to push forward, but nothing moves. The clock ticks, but time doesn't feel real anymore. Days blur into nights, weeks into months, and you keep asking yourself, why does everything feel paused for me? It's not laziness. It's not failure. It's not because you're being left behind. It's because Allah has placed your soul in divine suspension. Not to punish you, but to protect the timing of your transformation. There are things that have not yet aligned. There are people you're not supposed to meet yet. There are places you would have rushed into and lost yourself. There are blessings that would have crushed you if He gave them too soon. So He paused your timeline. He slowed down your season. He held you in this strange, invisible stillness, where everything looks the same on the outside. But inside, you feel like the world is happening without you. And that's the test. To wait, without knowing what's being written. To trust, while everything looks still. To surrender, when your soul is restless for answers that won't come yet. But here's what you don't see. This silence you hate is where your roots are quietly growing. You're not behind, you're deepening. Allah is not rushing you, because He's not preparing you for something average. He's preparing you for something timeless. And timeless things are not built in urgency. They're carved in sacred delay. That's why nothing is moving. Not because there's no progress, but because your soul is being perfectly positioned for a moment in the future. That will make everything make sense. If He let you move too early, you would have settled. If He opened the door too soon, you would have walked in before becoming who you were meant to be. And so He holds you, suspended, unseen, still. It's hard. It feels like you're forgotten. But what's really happening is that your story is being edited in silence. Every delay, every pause, every closed path, they're all part of a divine choreography that you're not supposed to understand yet. So take a breath and stop comparing your pace to anyone else, because Allah doesn't write your destiny based on what others are doing. He writes it based on what your soul needs. And right now, Your soul needs stillness. Your soul needs space. Your soul needs this suspension to unlearn the noise, to rebuild its voice, to become ready for what can't be undone once it arrives. This is not stagnation, this is preparation. And when Allah finally releases you from this pause, you'll move so far, so fast, and so purposefully. You'll realize it was never a delay. It was a divine countdown to the version of you that needed time to become real. 6. When you feel watched, but not by people. Sometimes, you walk into a room and pause. There's no one there, no footsteps, no voices, no eyes on you. But still, you feel it, that unseen weight, that presence. Not heavy, but unmistakable. It's as if something is watching you, but not in a way that threatens, in a way that quiets your heart. You're not paranoid, you're not imagining it. You are being watched, but not by people, by the one who never left your side, even when you forgot he was there. It's in the way your skin tingles during dua, even when your voice is shaking. It's in the way you suddenly stop before taking a wrong step, as if something whispered, "Don't go there." It's in the way you feel protected in places that should have destroyed your peace. You look around for proof, but there's nothing your eyes can catch, because what's watching you is mercy. What's following you is a divine presence that records every breath you take in struggle and every tear that falls when no one else knows you're breaking. Sometimes the protection comes through something going wrong, sometimes through a delay that annoys you, sometimes through someone not showing up when you needed them, and you don't realize it in the moment. But Allah was there, blocking what would have stolen your light. And He never needed to explain Himself. He just stepped in, quietly. You feel it when you're about to sin, and your heart suddenly pulls back. You feel it when you cry alone, and out of nowhere, calmness surrounds you like a shield. You feel it when the words, "Ya Allah," leave your lips, and the room feels full even when you're alone. That's not your imagination. That's His closeness. When Allah prepares you for something greater, He doesn't just send signs, He surrounds you. He watches, He intervenes without a sound. He sees the heartbreak no one else noticed. He counts the small moments of goodness you never told anyone about. He watches the way you resist giving up. And He records it all because He knows the world forgets. But He doesn't. Even when you stop talking to Him, He still watches over you like someone who can't look away. Not because He needs you, but because He loves you. And nothing escapes the gaze of the one who handcrafted your soul. This feeling of being watched. It's not fear, it's sacred awareness. It's your fitra recognizing that even when no human eyes see your pain, Allah's eyes have never blinked once. You feel Him in the silence, in the stillness, in the gentle, unexplainable calm. Right after your worst nights, you were never alone. You just had to be emptied of people, so you could finally notice the one who was always behind the curtain. What Allah is preparing you for requires this level of intimacy, this level of nearness. Because what's coming will be so personal, so divine, that only someone who's felt watched by Allah will know how to carry it. So the next time you pause and feel that quiet, invisible presence wrap around you, don't dismiss it. It's not your mind playing tricks. It's your soul being reminded. You were never hidden from the one who matters most. And now, you're finally learning how it feels to walk under the constant watch of a love that never lets go. 7. When you start feeling homesick for a place you've never been, there's a certain kind of sadness that doesn't come from heartbreak. It doesn't come from people leaving or dreams fading. It comes from somewhere deeper, somewhere beyond this world. A quiet ache, a silent pull, like your soul is homesick for a place your body has never been. You feel it at random times, when the wind brushes your face just right, when you look at the sky and feel like it's calling you, when you're surrounded by people, but a part of you still feels absent. You feel like you're missing something, but you can't describe what. You try to attach it to memories, to childhood, to old wounds, but nothing quite fits, because the place you're longing for isn't on any map. It's not a location, it's a state of nearness to Allah that your soul remembers, but hasn't fully returned to yet. This isn't just sadness. It's divine nostalgia. It's the fitra inside you, the part of your soul that stood before Allah, before you were ever born, quietly whispering, "I remember something purer than this life, and I miss it." You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're not lost. You're awakening. You're feeling the discomfort of being a soul that was created for something eternal, while living in something temporary. And no matter how much love you receive, no matter how much success you achieve, you'll always feel this quiet ache. When your soul is craving more than what this world can offer, you're not meant to feel fully at home here, because this world was never home. It was a hallway, a waiting room, a journey back. That's why sometimes you want to cry, and you don't even know why. That's why you look at the stars and feel both comforted and painfully small. That's why the deeper you walk toward your purpose, the more you realize nothing here truly satisfies what you're really missing. Because what you're really missing is Allah, not in the way people say it, but in the way that feels like your soul is drifting too far from a light it once lived in, and no amount of distractions, no amount of attention can replace that nearness. Sometimes Allah puts that ache in you on purpose, to remind you that no matter how far you wander, your real home is in His closeness, not in people, not in status, not in comfort, but in that quiet place where you fall into sujood and your soul finally sighs in relief, as if to say, "There it is. I've been searching for this." What Allah is preparing you for is not just a chapter in this world. It's a reunion with your essence, a return to the version of you that walks closely with Him, even in chaos, even in pain, even when nothing around you feels like home. This ache you feel is holy. It's a compass. It's not meant to be cured. It's meant to guide you back to dhikr, back to purpose, back to truth, back to Him. So the next time your heart feels homesick for a place you can't describe, don't numb it, don't run from it. Listen, because that ache might be the very sign that your soul is finally ready to go where it was always meant to be. 8. When everything feels like it's falling apart, but your heart doesn't panic anymore. Everything around you feels like it's collapsing. The plans, the people, the path you were so sure about, it's all breaking, bending, disappearing. One thing after another, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. And you sit there, right in the middle of it, watching it unfold like a scene you've seen before. But this time, your heart doesn't panic. You're not spiraling like you used to. You're not trying to fix everything. You're not chasing people who walk away. You're not begging Allah to undo it all. You just sit in the silence. And something in you knows this has to happen. And that stillness in your chest, that calm in the middle of loss, it's not coldness, it's growth. It's the quiet confidence of someone who's been broken enough times to finally see clearly. That not everything falling apart is a tragedy. Some things fall because Allah is no longer allowing them to block what was always meant for you. You've been here before, shattered, confused, begging for answers. But this time is different, not because the pain is less, but because your soul has matured. It stopped making idols out of plans. It stopped trusting the illusion of control, and now it trusts Allah, even when nothing else makes sense. That's why your heart feels calm in the middle of this collapse, because you've realized that if Allah is letting something fall, it was never strong enough to stand in your future anyway. You don't cry the same anymore. You don't pray the same, and you don't ask for things to be returned. You ask for what's meant. You ask to be aligned, not attached, to be guided, not gratified. And it's in that shift, that surrender, where the real transformation begins. You used to see falling apart as failure. Now, you see it as divine construction. Allah is not breaking your life. He's removing the pieces that were silently killing your peace, the relationships that drained your light, the habits that numbed your soul, the distractions that delayed your purpose. And sometimes He won't explain it. He'll just start taking, silently, one by one, until you're left standing in the ruins of a life that looked perfect, but wasn't made to last. And in that moment, when you feel the weight of everything slipping away, you don't collapse. You breathe. You fall into sujood. And your tears this time are not desperate. They're grateful, because somehow, even in the loss, you feel held. Even in the absence, you feel surrounded. Even in the unknown, you feel known. That's when you realize you're no longer who you used to be. You've been rebuilt, brick by brick, fall by fall, prayer by prayer. And now, you don't need everything to go right to feel secure. You just need to know that whatever does go right will come only from Him. What Allah is preparing you for can't be built on shaky ground. So yes, everything had to fall apart so that your foundation could finally be Him. And with a foundation like that, you no longer fear what's falling. You just wait for what's coming. So if you're watching this and your life feels like it's paused or breaking or floating in between what was and what will be, know this: you are not being punished. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are being rewritten by the One who saw what you couldn't let go of and still chose to love you enough to take it from your hands anyway. You are being prepared for something that doesn't come wrapped in noise, but in silence, in delay, in the ache that nobody else understands. Because what's ahead of you is not just a chapter, it's a version of your soul that only divine loneliness could unlock. You're not the same anymore. And that's the proof that the preparation worked. You feel deeper, you need less, you trust more, you see through what used to blind you, and now you're ready. Not because everything is fixed, but because everything that broke you was part of the prayer you didn't know you were making. So breathe, let go, let it fall away, because Allah didn't bring you this far to leave you wandering. He brought you here to reveal the version of you that only He ever saw coming. And soon, you'll look back at everything that fell apart and whisper with a smile, "That was Him, preparing me for this." And it will be worth every silent night you thought He wasn't listening, because He always was, He always is, and He always will be. Your time is coming, and when it does, you'll know it had to be Him. It could only ever be Him.